think that you're supposed to move away from, in a sense, the knowledge of the negative and only think positive thoughts, only become aware of the good side. Bashar has said the idea of growth, the idea of spiritual growth, is a product of expansion and inclusion, not the product of exclusion. You can't get rid of anything. All that is, the one, the highest possible source, is the inclusion of everything, dark and light. It's not the issue that you have to experience the dark, but when you're aware, when you allow the dark to be an equal choice to the light, then you actually disempower it from manifesting. When negative choices become equally valid as choices to the positive choices, then all choices are equal, and you can choose what you prefer, because not any one side or another has any more ability or power to become manifested other than what you prefer to choose. So many people try to get rid of the negative things, try to shun them, try to bury them, deny them, but there's nowhere to push anything away to. They only spring back. But when you allow them to be there for a reason and recognize that they're just as valid as anything and that they're there to teach you lessons, then you actually pull all the energy out of them because you've used them for what purpose they exist. They're no longer trying to get your attention, and they can sort of relax into an equilibrium with all choices. And then you can, out of that balanced state, choose what you actually prefer to manifest rather than giving energy to the negative side by being afraid that it's somehow going to manifest without your say-so, which it can't do.
Does Bashar ever give Darryl advice? I mean, like your day-to-day life does...
Very rarely. Now and then I'll get a download about something that's important for me to understand. But I think, again, like I said, after 26 years, I understand the basic concepts he's talking about, and I'm just as responsible for attempting to put those things into practice as anyone. And so, he has a relatively hands-off policy with me as well and wants me to know that I have my own life. He doesn't want me to feel like I'm some kind of a puppet. And so he lets me figure things out as well on my own so that I'm self-empowered. But like I said, after channeling for 26 years, a lot of the concepts have rubbed off on me pretty solidly, and I have learned pretty quickly that anytime I ignore these sort of universal concepts, it makes life just as difficult for me as it could be for anyone. So at this point in my life, I tend to pay attention to those things and not ignore them anymore.
So Bashar is your future self.
He has explained it that way. Now, from his perspective, future and past are really also just illusions. Right. Everything really exists at once, simultaneously. But for lack of a better term, in our language, the vibrational dimension in which his people exist, we would perceive it, in a sense, as if it's a future. So he said, linearly speaking, from a linear space-time perspective, you could consider him to be a future incarnation of mine while I am his past incarnation on Earth, which is one of the things that they often do when they know that they might be going to interact with a civilization. They often choose to have incarnations in that civilization so that they can draw from the experiences and knowledge of that civilization so that when they communicate with them, they'll have some common understanding and common ground. Otherwise, he says, we'd probably be too alien to each other to understand each other. And because we are, in a sense, aspects of the same soul in different incarnations, it makes the telepathic connection easier to happen because it's really the same soul communicating with itself.
Sure. I've always had the belief, here's that word again, that we are having all of our past lives and future lives in the now moment because there is no time. Exactly.
He's used an analogy that I like often. That's what, he recognizes we have this technology on Earth called television and film, and he often uses that to reference some of these universal concepts by creating a simple analogy that, he says, at any given moment, you're watching television, you're watching a program, but you know that at that moment there are other TV shows that exist at the same time, even though you're not watching them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like all the other lives going on at the same time. Even though your consciousness may be only focused on this program, it doesn't mean the other programs aren't real and are not accessible and are not having their own experience. Mm-hmm. Or like a film strip, where you have many different frames on the same film strip. You know, he said, when you are in the film or watching the film, you only see one frame at a time in a certain order, and you get this illusion of continuity from past, present, and future. But if you're the projectionist, you can actually hold the film strip in your hands and see all the frames at once in any order you want. So all the frames exist at the same time. They don't even have to be viewed in an order from past to future. You can view them backwards or any order you wish. So he says reality is actually, structured more like that, where all the lives, all the experiences, they all coexist, and it's only a matter of how your consciousness is focused as to how you experience it and whether you experience it in linear space-time or from another dimension where time is not so solid or what have you.
Has he ever said how many dimensions there are?
Well, to him, there are an infinite number of dimensions. But within each, let's say, within each level of reality, there may be a certain finite number of dimensions that are germane to that particular reality's experience. Like, in other words, he's talked about the idea of, our concept of the speed of light. And he says, well, yes, obviously it's true what, our scientists say, that the speed of light, in a sense, is a speed limit within our reality. But that's only within our dimension of reality. As far as he's concerned, there are other realities where things can go much faster, even be instantaneous, but he recognizes that what we call the speed of light is the border, in a sense, of our particular experience of physical reality.
Does that have to do with any kind of collective consciousness agreement?
Yes, of course, because all things are done, not only by an individual agreement, but also by a collective agreement. So if we are going to play in a certain playground, we are agreeing to the rules of that playground, and if we go to another playground, there may be different rules.
Okay. Now, Bashar talks a lot about one being universe, spelled Y-O-U, universe.
Yes.
And there's,
yeah.
Is he referring to the fact that there's really nothing out there at all? It's all you?
Well, again, it's this and that. The idea is that, again, it's holographic, to use a word. Every individual is a true individual, but every individual is not only part of the whole, every individual is also a unique expression of the whole. So like in a hologram, where the entire picture is everywhere on the holographic film, each individual contains the entirety of creation in a certain perspective, from a certain point of view, individually, uniquely. So there is the whole supporting the parts, but the parts are also completely contain all the information of the whole. So we are each an entire universe unto ourselves, even while we are also a part of a larger creation.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, I'm sure after I listen to it about 5 times, it'll make more sense.
Yeah, the nature of holograms actually really kind of is a good analogy for that, because in a typical hologram, you actually have the entire picture everywhere on the film.
Right.
So it's kind of like that. Every part is the whole, and all together they make up another whole.
Right. So is your spouse there, or is it a reflection of what's going on in you? Or are you creating the spouse?
Both. Remember, it's this and that. So in other words, every person is a real aspect of creation. They are an autonomous consciousness. But at the same time, the only way you can experience anyone in your reality is to actually create your version of them to interact with. Wow. So they are both autonomous unto themselves, but the only time you can interact with them is by actually creating them in your universe to interact with by agreement. So it's both.
I'm going to just throw this out here. If anybody's on the call here that would like to ask you a question, just raise your hand or whatever you have to do. I think there's something to click to let me know that you want to say something. And let's see. We do have a chat room here that people have been typing stuff, and I'm talking to you rather than reading it, so let me just read one real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Darryl. It says, okay, well, that's basically what I asked you earlier. If there would be a time that we could do this again, maybe, and then you would be able to channel Bashar.
The only time I can do that, or the only way I can do that over the phone or over anything like that, is if I'm completely hands-free. And so, there might be the opportunity to do something over Skype or something like that.
Okay.
But I just don't really have any other way of doing that.
Okay.
Other than in person or in a manner that would actually allow me to function in the same manner that I do when I'm doing it in person.
Okay. So we'll intend that.
Sure. The other thing, of course, that can be done is that clips can be played of things that we've already recorded over the years that indicate, some of the things that Bashar has talked about. If people just simply want to hear what he sounds like, or like you said, go to the Bashar.org website where we have a lot of, clips there that'll give people an idea of what a session is like.
Absolutely. And Darryl, I have to commend you. I mean, you give away so much stuff for free. Your website's just full of information, and we're
actually changing it as well. We're actually just about ready to launch a whole redesign and upgrade of the website. I'm not exactly sure how soon that'll be up, but we're just about ready to put up a new website that'll have a lot of new things on it, a lot of new interactive kinds of functions to it, and hopefully will really expand a person's ability to access the information and a lot of other interesting and fun things that we're going to put up there as well.
Yeah. Well, you and Bashar are truly a gift, and thanks so much. Let's see, I have some more questions here. I would like to hear what Bashar has to say about the pineal gland.
The pineal gland, yeah. Bashar actually has been talking quite a bit about it within the last few months. He recognizes that it produces, I believe, what's called dimethyltryptamine, I think it's DMT, which is a particular chemical that activates our ability to actually perceive into higher frequency dimensions. So he has been talking a lot about the idea of getting into altered states that allow or altered states that automatically allow the pineal gland to function in a manner that we can become more aware of our ability to contact and connect with other levels of consciousness within ourselves, other beings and other dimensions, specifically through the regulation of the pineal gland.
So would it be safe to say, let me just interrupt you for a second, would it be safe to say that Darryl's pineal gland is